Chaos is a part of a renewing of government. I use the word renewing, but really reconstructing how the federal government's operating. And it's not the first time in the modern era that we've done this.
It is not.
I went back in time in the Wayback Machine known as the internet, and I went back to the Reagan administration.
I think it's the first time we're seeing a bit of a change on this. Yeah. And I would say I'm rooting for Shadur also. He's a young man. Sometimes the best lessons are when you're young.
Yes.
And we always used to tell our son that coachability is equal to humility.
So there is a lot of great research regarding chocolate in the brain, but primarily it's a vasodilator, so it makes your blood vessels expand, which allows more blood and oxygen to flow to the brain. And it's one of the few things that can cross over the blood-brain barrier. So they can help protect the brain, like against Alzheimer's or degeneration. But I think people kind of mismanage the message because they're like, oh, I'm going to eat this Hershey's syrup on my ice cream and it'll be good for me.
Good afternoon or evening or morning or whenever you're watching this beautiful show on IITV on YouTube. My name is Mandy and this is my friend Deb.
And this is my friend Mandy.
And together we are Mandy and Deb. It's getting better. It's not much better.
No, we have to keep practicing that, but we are so grateful you're joining us. Please make sure to subscribe below to all of these shows, watch all the great shows on IITV, and follow us on our Facebook page, Mandy and Deb, with an ampersand, just like this fun little
because
thing
we're
over
fancy.
Here. Oh, we are so fancy.
We're so fancy.
Speaking of fancy,
guys, this weekend, tomorrow, it is the Run for the Roses in Louisville, Kentucky. I had the privilege of living there for multiple years. I've been to the Derby 5 times, and it is the most spectacular event you will ever go to. Here's my advice if you want to go to the Kentucky Derby. Number 1, don't try to go cheap. You don't want to be with the great unwashed masses. You want to be up in the skyboxes someplace fancy with a buffet. Secondarily, have your hat made to match your dress. I am the proud owner of far too many Derby hats because you don't just have a hat for Derby. You have a hat for the day before. So I brought these in for Deb and I to try on because I think they're absolutely spectacular. And I'm going to give a little shout out to Dee's in Louisville, Kentucky. Look at this.
That is how, and I have to say, I grew up in Colorado, so these are all Mandy's Derby hats. And here's this beautiful creation.
I mean, look at these things. Look at these hats. So if you have a chance to go to the Derby, and don't bet the Derby, because as my old boss used to say, the Derby race itself, it's a sucker's bet. There's too many horses. So enjoy the hat.
Yes.
If you can, enjoy a mint julep. I personally find them revoltingly disgusting. But have a good time. Head to the Run for the Roses. It's tomorrow. It's a glorious day.
And I have to try one more on because I'm so color coordinated that if I do all of this, I actually start to disappear. And I think it's kind of cool.
You almost look like an Alice in Wonderland character at this point. You're just like the teal lady. That's what's happening.
Sometimes I feel like an Alice in Wonderland.
Okay, now we have to fix our hair. Okay. We don't have people for that.
All right. Well, there's a lot going on in the world.
Yes.
Other than just the Kentucky Derby, although I know that Mandy does consider that to be of a primary importance.
Yes, very important.
But so we are literally going to put away this hat, put on our other hats because, as we always say in the show, we've got issues.
Boy, do we have issues. We got a lot of issues this week, too, because big news. I don't know if you guys knew this. Donald Trump has been in office for over 100 days now, 103 now.
It depends on when you're watching this, over 100.
So a lot of people are kind of doing a retrospective on the 100 days, and the words chaotic are being used on a regular basis.
Also words like historic, because so much has been done in 100 days. So there's things that people have a lot of different views about. I mean, here's 2 things that I think are really, really good. One is that border crossings in 100 days are down 93 to 99%. 99% for crossings, 93% they're down for encounters. You compare that to 11 million border crossings over the Biden administration as a minimum. That's what the CBA is actually listing. So that is actually a pretty phenomenal statistic, as well as a lot of things that we talked about the last show. I think soon we will not be paying for the study on how fish feel about global warming, climate change, whatever you want to call it. So those are some positives, but we know there's a lot of chaos as well.
Well, the chaos, though, I think has been, and this is what I'm trying to tell people who are still on the freaking out side of things, the chaos is a part of a renewing of government. I use the word renewing, but really reconstructing how the federal government's operating. And it's not the first time in the modern era that we've done this.
It is not.
I went back in time in the Wayback Machine known as the internet, and I went back to the Reagan administration because
One of my favorites.
Yeah, and many people who lived through the Reagan administration remember that when he took office, we were in a terrible economic situation. We had very high unemployment. We had very high inflation, like 12% year over year. And the first thing he did was cut government spending and contract the money supply. And that threw us into a very deep recession very, very quickly. But what we're looking at now, everything that's going on, I feel like is magnified because when Reagan did this, it was over a period of months. He had a really good relationship with Tip O'Neill, the Democratic House of Representatives, or Speaker of the House.
It was very different times.
It wasn't
in DC.
under the media microscope that we are now. When you think about putting a presidency to the test by saying, how's the first 100 days going? It's kind of absurd.
Yeah, it
really,
is.
When you think about it.
Well, and I went further back in the way back machine than Reagan. And what I think is interesting is some of the analysis that are happening is that probably the only comparison to the equal amount of stuff that has been done in 100 days was under FDR's first term when he was coming in with the New Deal. And obviously our country was experiencing all kinds of troubles at that time. But when you think about what's really happening, since the FDR administration, 100 days, massive growth of the federal government. We never did a reset after that. We just kept growing and growing and growing. And so a lot of people are talking about now here we are, and these 100 days are not the New Deal. They're getting rid of the New Deal with a different deal, which is now bringing government back. I mean, we're not in a massive depression like we saw during FDR's time. We're not in between World War I and World War II. So in some ways, it is a reset. And I think it's going to be, shocking to people because we've gotten used to a continually expanding, growing government ever since the FDR New Deal. And I think it's necessary.
One of the things I really want people to pay attention to are the GDP numbers that came out this week, because this week it showed a contraction in the GDP, and that's significant. But a big part of that was because federal spending has been pulled back.
Yes.
Guys, if that's what was propping up our GDP before, that wasn't real. That wasn't real growth. The government cannot create growth. It doesn't make a product.
Yes.
It doesn't provide a service. I mean, it provides a service, but not one that is going to create value. It's a completely different kind of beast.
And I also think it's interesting because as a small business owner, as many people are, whenever they say government created jobs, government doesn't really do that. Small business does it. It doesn't create wealth. All they do is spend more of your and my tax dollars. So it's interesting that it is affecting the GDP, but in a way where you and I hopefully will have more of our own money to spend where we want to spend it. So it is a bit of a shock to the governmental system. But just think about the fact that we've never had a reset after the FDR period, which is when everything began to grow from that point. So interesting.
I want to give a few stats really short, like 10 seconds here. In 1982, under Reagan, the GDP was negative 1.8%. In 1984, after contracting government spending and slicing and dicing on a lot of programs, we were at 7.2% growth.
Wow.
7.2% GDP. So I am of the mindset that I have to let this play out. We have to give it more than 100 days. We have to see how all of these tariff negotiations go. And some of the stuff that's happening internationally with Marco Rubio is fascinating. He's in the process now. I don't know if you guys even saw this story of negotiating peace in the Congo in a civil war that's been going on for 30 years. There are some really good things happening.
Well, and the other thing we think about is that growth that started with FDR, the comparison to how much has been done at the beginning of an administration. And by the way, Trump also had 4 years to figure out what he wanted to do. So he's been ready from the get-go. But when you think about that, we reached a point that is unsustainable in our debt. I mean, as a mom, I look at the debt we have been passing on to the next generation as not just unsustainable, but immoral. We can't keep going the way we're going. We have to pull government back, and we have to right this ship that's kind of been going on this same course for far too long. So there you go.
That's Trump's first 100 days and the first 10 minutes of the show. There we go. No, it's been kind of a big deal. And I just, I'm taking a wait and see approach because I do think a lot of the stuff that's happening right now is going to create the kind of economic growth that we've seen before.
Yeah, indeed.
All right. So let's talk about judges gone bad. I mean, judges gone completely rogue.
Wait, I see a cool trailer
I
of
know,
a reality
really, like
show
judges
happening
gone
now.
rogue.
Yeah.
Specifically, judges breaking the law
Yes.
in order to protect illegal immigrants who are in their courtroom. And I think that second part is really important because these are people who are in court for committing a crime.
Yes.
Okay, they're not just standing there hanging out. They're there for committing a crime. And 2 separate judges have now been removed from the bench and will be charged with a crime for harboring illegal immigrants who were charged with a crime.
Yeah, and one of those cases was in Wisconsin where the judge actually misled FBI and ICE agents and was arrested by the FBI, removed from the bench since then. And here's the bottom line. We as a society have to decide, and this is from both sides, no matter who is doing what, no one is above the law. The minute we cease to be a nation of laws, honestly, that's when chaos begins. And so for a judge, somebody who's entrusted with the branch of our government to uphold the law, you know what? If we don't like the law, then change it. But you don't just ignore it. You don't just say, I'm not going to do it. And by the way, in the Wisconsin case, that illegal immigrant was there because they were up for abuse charges, domestic abuse charges. So let's not let a narrative be being put out there that this was a person who was being abused or hiding. But even so, the usual place for sanctuary is a church, not a courtroom that is about upholding the law.
I find this kind of case even worse in a way than your average kind of crime because a judge absolutely knows that they are abusing their position and breaking the law to do that. And I just think this is worse. I think people who have the ability to take someone's life need to be held to a higher standard, and that includes police officers and first responders. But I also think people who work within the legal system and abuse it, there should be a special set of circumstances in that case, because I find that especially awful.
Well, and I agree. And I think the other thing is, if we're in a society where there are not consequences for breaking the law, I mean, as a mom, how many times you say, I'm sorry, there are consequences. You stole your sister's toy, you're going in timeout. But if we don't feel that there are consequences, I think the erosion that the American people have of confidence in the law and the government will continue to erode, and we cannot have that. And now switching gears, when we think about some of these societal questions, is anyone above the law? Is there an absolute right and a wrong? There are some things. We are also seeing a shift in our culture to what's now called dark woke.
Yeah.
This became a meme that began during the Trump inauguration. And what it really said as a society is it is okay now, it is justified now to basically wish someone who has a different political viewpoint from you absolute ill, suffering, misfortune, etc.
I wish that this was new. I mean, I wish that I thought this had just occurred. It just seems to be way more blatant and way more violent. But remember, during COVID, if you didn't want to wear a mask or you didn't want to have a vaccine, there were people on the internet saying you should die.
Yes.
You should, if you get COVID, you should die without treatment. So this has been growing, and I'm not crazy in saying that it happens on the right too.
Oh yeah.
But it is very, very mainstream right now on the left. Whereas if I see something like that on the right, I'm going to push back. If it's someone I know, I'm going to send them a message.
100%.
And it seems to be mainstreaming on the left in a way that is very disconcerting.
Well, and one of the things I would say about that too is it's actually been studied, and a study came out recently with the NCRI that said they interviewed a whole lot of people about what they call the assassination culture. And they asked those who self-identified as left of center said that it was somewhat or completely justified to assassinate the president of the United States and Elon Musk. Whatever you feel about their policies, we have to pull ourselves back from that as a culture, because if we don't, Mandy, then there is no turning back. The normalization of this kind of vitriolic conversation, we've even said, on a lighter note, the normalization of swearing is like all over the place.
But you know what? This kind of goes back to the last topic, right? Because when you lose faith in institutions, and in all honesty, that is an incredibly critical, dangerous thing. When a society loses faith in its institutions, there's really nothing to hold us together, right?
Agreed.
We need that framework that brings us all together as Americans and Coloradans and Denverites or whatever. So when people lose faith in that, I think it does become easier to sort of put yourself out there and be assume that people are going to support you if you do something crazy. And I just think all of that goes together in a very unsettling way.
Yes, it does.
And I'm not sure how to rein that in. And that's the scary part.
Well, and that's a great, question, because we always end our show with, your kindness challenge or good news. And we will get to that as well. But here's something every single one of us can do. We can call it out where we see it on the right or on the left. I mean, I love debate. And I remember the first rule of debate was the first person who calls someone a name or loses their cool lost a debate. We got to get back to even having a debate, not jumping to that first. So we can be the ones to treat others with respect. I think there's a great hunger and thirst for it. There's something happening in the groundwater. People that are, what I would say the civil center maybe, are wanting us to get back to where we can just talk about things. We don't have to agree with one another. So I think each one of us can play a part on that, but we also need to call it out wherever we see it, when we see it.
I think that the fact that a little bit, if it bleeds, it leads, that if they scream the loudest or look the freakiest or show up and do the weirdest thing, they're going to be on the news. They're going to be, their social media feed's going to get shared. So we've incentivized all of this crazy nut bar behavior. And then we're rewarding it with clicks and likes and whatever. And that, for me, those are never the people that we want to elevate.
Agreed.
But they seem to be elevated via algorithms on social media, and it just invites more of the same.
It does. I'm sorry. I'm just writing down what I call Mandyisms.
Oh, gosh.
I want a t-shirt that says no nut bar behavior, because that is not a phrase that I've ever heard before. So
I'll stick around. I got millions of them.
No, but truly, I mean, we each can make a difference in this. And honestly, if we don't, I mean, I understand why people are angry. A lot of times they're angry because maybe they feel like their voice isn't being heard, or maybe they have misinformation. But the more that we let the angry ends of our culture drive us over the cliff, the less that we are going to sustain ourselves as a civil society. Each one of us can be the ones to do that. I mean, let's all challenge ourselves. If somebody disagrees with us, let's listen for a little bit. Let's actually treat them with respect, because that is the key for a very complex society like ours.
Well, I think that if you never have your opinions challenged, if you never have a conversation where someone says, make me understand why you feel that way, or help me understand, or even you're a blanking idiot and I think you're a moron and then you have to defend yourself. I think it's good because it forces you to reaffirm why you believe what you believe, because you have to make the argument. So I'm not saying you should seek out people to argue with, but you should not be afraid of it. But you should also be able to do it in a way that says, hey, even if you think I'm a blanking idiot, do you want to have a conversation or do you want to have an argument?
Exactly.
And if they say a conversation, then you can kind of jump in and make it happen. I want to do something we probably never will do again, much like handbags on this program. I want to talk sports for a second, or a sports-related story.
Okay, there we go.
Young Shedeur Sanders, the son of Deion Sanders, CU Buffalo quarterback, and he had a very good year. He broke a lot of records at CU, and he was going into the NFL draft. He decided to skip the combine. He decided to skip the senior games. He gave some press conferences where he indicated that he expected a club and franchise's culture to change to accommodate him. And after widely being expected to be a first-round draft pick by his dad and others, he fell into the 5th round of the NFL draft, which is a just spectacular fall from grace. The reason we're bringing this up is that this is such a cautionary tale for so many young people who are rolling in on hype and not willing to put the work in to earn the respect of the people that you need to earn the respect of. And I think that I'm rooting for him so hard. I'm rooting for him so hard. I want him to have that gut check moment where you go, wow, have I misfired in so many different directions at the same time?
Yes.
Because he's very talented, but his ego, his attitude, they were all wrong. And the NFL ownership just said, pass. And they passed him so many times, 143 times.
I agree. And I think one of the reasons that this is getting so much attention is because we have had a culture where those who brag the most, those who have that strut and that swagger and that hype are so rewarded. And, I do like to talk about football, although we need to talk about the Buckeyes.
No, we're not.
But yes. Someday.
It's our first fight.
Instead of a hat, by the way, someday she'll be wearing a Buckeyes helmet.
I'll be dead. That's what I'll be dead. When you see me in a Buckeyes helmet, just be like, oh, I'm so sorry.
I don't want that to happen, so I won't force it until you adjust. But the point is this, all the times that my husband and I and our son plays football in college, all the times we watch football, we're always so tired of somebody getting to the very end of a play, spiking the ball, doing their dance as though they're the only person on the team. It took 11 people on the team, an entire coaching staff, everyone in the trainers to get that play to where it was. So what I think is encouraging about this actually is I think it's the first time we're seeing a bit of a change on this. Yeah. And I would say I'm rooting for Shadur also. He's a young man. Sometimes the best lessons are when you're young. Yes. And we always used to tell our son that coachability is equal to humility. And coaches are looking for those who are coachable. And he did say after this experience, he said, he's learned a lot. He's thought about things he wants to change. So we're rooting for him. And this could be the thing that makes him go
Shadur.
Unless he's playing against, our team, then I'm sorry.
No, he can play against. No.
Anyway,
moving on. Now, we have such good news.
Oh, yay.
Our next segment, we've got stuff. Yes. If you love chocolate, like we love chocolate, and you're looking for an excuse to eat more chocolate, we have her for you here today. Her name is Julie Nygard. She is the chocolate therapist. She is a chocolatier. She has a shop in downtown Littleton, Colorado. She also has an online shop. And I'm not saying I just dropped a lot of money there for my family, but I did because I was going to talk about it. And it was important for us to have product here to talk about. Julie, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mandy. It's so funny. I was at the bank when you got here. I'm so bummed that I missed you. So thank you so much for coming in. But it was funny because as soon as you left, someone came into the store and they were talking about you. And I was like, oh, she was just here. Did you see her? And the woman was like, wait a minute, she was just here. And she's like running out the street. She's like, where is she? Where is she? I was such a fan.
That's so funny. Thank you.
It was great.
Well, and Julie, it's so nice to meet you. I've been looking for a new therapist, and you're my chocolate therapist. I'm joking about needing a therapist, but I love the idea of chocolate therapy. Well, I think that's amazing.
Julie has a great story.
The price is really good.
Yeah, there you go. Julie has a great story of how she went from corporate life to chocolate. So you want to share a little bit about your expertise in this area?
Sure. Well, really, I was in the apparel industry for 18 years, but I was always studying nutrition, and I studied it in college, and I read all the diet books, ran studies on myself. I got my nutrition certification, and I was like, I'm going to write a book about nutrition. And the health benefits of chocolate news broke. So I was like, whoa, that sounds like way more fun. I'm going to write my book about chocolate, the health benefits of chocolate. And so I wrote the book, The Chocolate Therapist. I don't know if you have it there, but The Chocolate Therapist, a user's guide to the extraordinary health benefits of chocolate. And one thing led to another. I mean, I didn't own the store when I wrote the book. I wrote the book, started speaking, started a brand, then bought the store. So it was like, that's just how it worked.
Wow.
Well, first of all, the chocolate is delicious. And they have so many different things. I've got some dark chocolate almonds. I've got the box of assorted dark chocolate. We're all dark chocolate people on the set.
I'm taking
And then,
these.
no, you're not. And then this is for my daughter, who's now a dark chocolate person. She's like, Mom, bring me the super dark chocolate bar. But we're dark chocolate people, but dark chocolate is really where it's at in terms of health benefits, right?
It is, yeah. Yeah, really, I mean, chocolate's made from the ground seeds of a fruit tree, so you have a lot of things coming into it, like from the get-go, that are good for you, but it's what we add to it that makes it good or bad.
Well, and what is it exactly? Because I've read about the flavonoids, which I always just thought was like extra flavor, but it's actually that is something that
it's
I
like
love
a vitamin
the name.
thing, whatever.
I want more flavonoids. But anyway.
Yeah, flavonoids, they're like an antioxidant. It's really rich in antioxidants. I mean, I have the cocoa pod with me. Here's the fruit that it comes from. And this goes through this whole process, which I won't go through right now, but eventually you end up with, the seeds of the fruit tree being ground together, turning into that thick chocolate soup called cocoa liquor. So if you think about it, the most nutrient dense part of the plant is the base of chocolate. So what you want to do when you eat chocolate for the health benefits is you want to try to get as much of that fruit as possible, instead of all the sugar and the dyes and all the other goo that people add into it. That's why the darker you go, the better, because you get more of the actual fruit, which is very, very rich in antioxidants. Many of them they're only in chocolate, right? They're very unique to chocolate
I'm
as
taking
fruit.
them again.
You have to have chocolate for your health. You can't just leave that
Right?
nutrient on the floor. You have to have it.
I think that and red wine, I've heard those together, and your flavonoids.
Yeah, you're taking care of all your
right. That's like everything.
antioxidants.
I even gave a TEDx presentation on the health benefits of chocolate. I did a deep dive on it. So I'm like, listen, if you really want to do it, you do kind of have to stick with the 70%. I saw, Mandy, you bought the purist bar.
Yes.
You got the extreme therapy. For people that like milk chocolate, I have a bar called Going to the Dark Side that's like half milk, half dark to kind of train your palate to get over. So we have it all. We're hard at work here.
What is the difference between milk chocolate and dark chocolate? If somebody loves milk chocolate and they don't know why they don't like dark chocolate, what's the difference?
Well, it has a lot more sugar in it, and it has some milk solids in it, of course. So they probably like sweet things more. And the thing about it is it's like good wine. You can train your palate. Like this is why we have this bar, this Going to the Dark Side, because if you start eating, maybe like I used to eat them together, milk and dark. That's why I came up with the bar, because I was a true milk chocolate lover when I started all of this. So you train your palate and you start to like dark chocolate better because you start to enjoy the flavor of chocolate. It's like a level of sophistication. I'm not saying milk chocolate lovers aren't sophisticated, because I still love milk chocolate. But if you want to eat it for the health benefits and you need to train yourself to like dark chocolate, it is possible. There is hope.
I love the fact that I've always liked dark chocolate. I'm more sophisticated. I feel like now I need to eat my chocolate bar with my pinky up because I'm more sophisticated. But I do have a question. You said 70%. Is that like the starting point for good health on chocolate? Is it 70%, dark chocolate, pure chocolate, and above? What's your thought on that?
Well, the reason that I suggest that is the majority of the research that's being done on the health benefits of chocolate is being done on 70% and higher. So if you want to get the same results, say maybe help your immune system, more blood to the brain, all of the wonderful things that are all about chocolate, you kind of have to replicate the research, right? So that's why I suggest that. But, I think people should eat as dark as they can tolerate, right? It's a little of a good thing, right? Instead of none of that, like nothing at all would not be as good.
You just mentioned some of the research, and then you said it gets your brain more blood. So legitimately, I could say, I'm feeling a little brain fog. I think I need some chocolate to put more blood to my brain. What is that about? How does that work?
So there is a lot of great research regarding chocolate in the brain, but primarily it's a vasodilator. So it makes your blood vessels expand a little bit more, up to 20% after about an hour of eating a bar of dark chocolate, which allows more blood and oxygen to flow to the brain. And it's one of the few things that can cross the antioxidants in chocolate, cross over the blood-brain barrier. So they can help protect the brain, like against Alzheimer's or degeneration. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about the great benefits. But I think people kind of mismanage the message because they're like, oh, I'm going to eat this Hershey syrup on my ice cream and it'll be good for me. Or I'm going to have
that's
this.
not allowed.
No. I mean, if you're going health benefits, you got to step up your game a little.
Yeah.
That's why we're like a clean ingredient company. We don't use dyes or preservatives. We're gluten-free, soy-free. We don't use corn syrup. I'm like, if you're going to have a treat, I want it to be something that you can feel good about enjoying.
Now, am I going to eat this bar every day to enjoy the benefits of chocolate? Or am I going to eat like 3 dark chocolate cherries a day? What is the proper dosage to make sure that I am maximizing my chocolate health benefits?
So I recommend 1 ounce, and this bar has 15 squares. So that'd be about 6 squares of this, but each person individually should kind of do the sample, because if you're less active, you may not be able to get away with that much. It might affect you. You might start gaining weight. So I think it's very individual, but I would suggest 1 ounce, although a lot of the research is done on more chocolate than that, like 2 ounces a day. Personally, I try for about 1 ounce max, which is challenging because I own a chocolate shop and I'm in here every day.
It must be great to just have a job where people are going to be happy to see you. You know what I mean? Like, you're the candy man. You probably have a chocolate river in your house like Willy Wonka.
Oh,
that would be super cool.
I'm getting very nostalgic. I think that I want to put that hat back on again. You've got the Willy Wonka thing happening.
Guys, it's the best. I love the fact that our job in the world is to create more happiness in people's lives. And I do think that that is helpful right now, especially because there's so many stresses and challenges and so many things are going on that we can't control. And so maybe a little nibble of chocolate. We have wine, we've got coffee, we have we have all the feel good things here. And I love that that is my responsibility in this world.
I would say
Yes.
I highly recommend. Do you still do the wine and chocolate pairing classes?
We do, yes. And
Yes,
they're
that is a
full.
fun evening with your friends. You can go down. She's in downtown Littleton, Colorado on Main Street. Cutest little shop ever. But I will say my only problem with going to the chocolate therapist is you can never eat crappy chocolate again.
Well,
Because
that's good though.
it's like a revelation. Once you have good chocolate, you cannot go back to whatever you're, in the checkout stand. It doesn't compare. So you've ruined me, Julie.
That's a good thing. That's for your health, Mandy. I did my work. My job here is complete.
I love it. And Julie, where can people find you? And I wanted to circle back on one thing. We had a show recently where we were talking about getting closer and closer to food you'd actually find outside. I love that you showed the tree root, because now I can really justify, yes, that would be outside. I do think that God's provided all of these amazing things that are good for our body. But where can people find you?
So we're right in the middle of historic downtown Littleton on Main Street. It's 2560 West Main. There's all kinds of cool little stores here. Like, it is an historic district. So it's a very unique place, lots of great restaurants. So you can come in. You can also do a flight here. We have a little wine bar and you can order a flight of chocolates. So if you can't make it to a class, you can bring somebody in from out of town and have this unique all Colorado experience. So yeah, just right down on Main Street in Littleton, and check out the website, thechocolatetherapist.com.
Yeah, that's the big one, because if you're outside the list, the view, outside of Littleton, you can still mail order and they will get you the chocolate. Julie Nygard, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for making the most delicious chocolate I have ever had. I just need you to open a store a little bit closer to my house, okay? Or maybe I don't. I don't know. Maybe I don't.
Your address.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think we may come to you. Our first location shoot might be a pairing set.
We could have a Mandy and Deb club meeting. Let's do it. Okay,
I love that. I love
your
that.
people, our people. We don't have any people, so we'll be in touch directly.
Yes, exactly.
There you go. Thanks
Let's
so
do
much,
it.
Julie.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Julie.
ladies.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, our next segment, I think we already started, which is we've got good news.
Yes.
And we already have good news that chocolate is actually good for you. So
100%.
that's pretty phenomenal. But we do always like to end the show with good news. Why don't you share something?
I have a couple of things. One of them is directly attached to the other. And there's an organization, and it was started by, oh my gosh, his name just zipped out of my head, Jeremy Bloom.
Mm-hmm.
And it is essentially, everybody knows about Make-A-Wish Foundation, where they grant wishes for children. He has one, but it's for older folks.
Oh, great.
And it allows them to kind of live out their dreams, as they're older and maybe they don't have the financial means.
Yes.
So he helps create wishes for these older people. And there's a young lady, she's like 89, and she wanted to drive a NASCAR car. And, we were talking about bucket list stuff and things of that nature. And I thought, well, now I have to drive a NASCAR car on my bucket list, because that sounds awesome. And I love people that see older people and see possibility.
Yes.
Because I think too many of us look through older people. We look past them. We don't assume that they can do or doing, capable. And I find myself, and I don't know if you do this too, I love talking to older people because I always try to pick their brains and get that little bit of wisdom. But the reality is that so many people do not talk to them, including their children.
Yes.
There have been situations where I've gone to a funeral and I was talking to an adult child and I told a story that this person had told me, and they'd say, I didn't know that story.
Yeah.
So take time, talk to your parents, find out
Yes.
stuff. If you want to, do something like a legacy project where
Yeah.
you sit down and interview your folks and get the information that you didn't get. Because trust me, when your folks are gone, you're going to wish you had done it. Big time.
Well, and I think that's a great, because we always do the kindness challenge, and I'll also in a moment share my good news of the week. But I think a great one out of that is, do ask someone a question. I'll never forget when our son was little, my husband and he were, and I tell most of my stories in the grocery line. I just think there's a lot that happens there. And there was an older gentleman that had a slash on his hand. And he just encouraged our son, because he was staring at it, to ask him. And this veteran teared up, and it was actually a wound from when he was in battle.
Oh, wow.
And he just started telling this story, and you realize it's the kind of thing he may know and have never told anybody else in his family about it. And it was deeply moving on both sides. It made a huge impression on our son. Obviously, my husband's a huge supporter of the military, being a veteran. So that's a great thing to do. Now, my story, my good news story is a story that went viral. There is a young girl, 15 years old. Her name is Macy. And Macy is a Down syndrome child, a teenager now. And there's this video that her mom posted, and it went viral. Tens of thousands of people watched it. And Macy gets in the car, and she just starts weeping and weeping with joy. And her mom's like, what? She goes, Mom, I got an invitation to a birthday party. And it makes you get choked up, because what the mom goes on to say is, in all the time that Macy's been at school, people are kind to her, but she's only been invited to a couple birthday parties ever. And it meant the world to her. And she did a follow-up video of Macy, like, she was in like 24 times Disney World. She was so excited. And it makes you realize, just those little joys, the people that are unseen when you're talking about older folks or people like that. My encouragement of a kindness challenge is this week, or when you have an event coming up, it's a picnic, it's a party or whatever. Maybe think of that person that's in your sphere, maybe just outside what would be your normal invitation list, and invite them. I mean, it doesn't take a lot for that gift of hospitality.
Until they come to your house and get super drunk and throw up in your ice bucket. I mean, it could happen, Deborah.
Macy did not do that. Macy did not do that.
Macy would not do that. But that's like,
by the way, that sounds like a voice of experience.
I'm just throwing that out there. There'll be no follow-up questions on that one. No, the birthday party subject is a little touchy for me, because when I was in Louisville doing a radio show as a conservative, there were a lot of less than nice liberal people. And we found out that when my daughter was like 3 years old in preschool, was literally excluded from a birthday party that every other kid got invited to. And I'm telling you right now, mess with me, do not mess with my kid.
Yes.
That is how I feel. So that is such a sensitive subject. And I'm glad that is out there to sort of bring awareness to other parents, because ultimately, sometimes you got to say to your kids, you have to invite them.
Well, and then, by the way, how do we teach our kids to get along if we separate them by our ideology or whatever? It just reminds me, one of my favorite videos against racism was of a tiny, I think they were probably 4 years old, tow-headed blonde boy, a black boy who was right next to him in his class. They were arm in arm, and they were so excited, and they looked into the camera, and the little tow-headed blonde boy said, "We are so excited we got the same haircut, and now our teacher will not be able to tell us apart." And the sheer joy and innocence, why drag kids into any separations you have? It really is, just like you say, racism is taught.
So is mean girling.
So is mean girling.
Yeah.
So invite that person, and then maybe their parents will start to soften up and be kind.
And as kids get older, you can't force kids to do that. But it is when they are little, I'd love it if parents did force them.
Mandy, you were invited to my birthday party. I'm just not going to tell you which
Will there
one
be a
it
bounce
is.
house?
Yes, and wine and chocolate.
And then someone will throw up in the ice bucket after the bounce house and the wine.
No,
and the
not
chocolate.
at my birthday party. That's your birthday party.
My birthday party are better.
Well, there we go.
No, just kidding. Okay, Act of Kindness Week this week.
Yes.
Okay, so here's my challenge for you, Act of Kindness Challenge, and that is get a cup of coffee with or for someone. If you work with someone on a daily basis and you know they drink coffee or they drink tea or whatever, walk in one day and say, "Hey, I thought about you at the coffee shop. I brought you a cup of coffee." Like, no big whoop, because sometimes I am finding out, like, if you're too nice to people, they freak out. They don't know what to do. So you have to kind of explain,
I don't want
again,
anything.
I'm not dying of cancer kind of thing. It's fine.
And I'm not
It's
asking
fine.
for a raise or whatever else like that.
Yeah.
I love that one. And obviously inviting someone to an event is one. One other one that I was just thinking of is, so we had someone in our circle, in our sphere of friends, that passed away recently. And, we texted the family, and we all do that. And texting I love now. I hated it when I got dragged into it. I love it now. But someone in our group recommended, why don't we all sign a card and send it? And I realized it seemed like such a big deal, getting the stamp, writing it out, putting it in the mail. But it's such a lost art.
Yeah.
And when we let the family know that these cards, 3 of them we ended up filling, were coming to them from all of these people, her daughter just broke down in tears because that's an extra step. It's not a big step. It's that small extra step that communicates far beyond what we could imagine.
I actually just started writing letters with my 2 grandsons. So I'm
I
getting
can't believe
like
your
the
grandmother,
cutest-
by the way.
I know.
Don't look like
I
it.
know. But it is the sweetest thing ever. And I love writing them back and asking them lots of questions. So they'll write me back and they have things to say in their letters. And
Aw.
I love my son for wanting to continue the tradition of letter writing. He writes me a letter too. So I'm now writing back to everyone. And it's a very sweet thing. And who doesn't love to get mail? I mean, mail that's not a bill.
Yes, and I also love this if you will mail these to me. Just kidding. Well, I think that is our show. Once again, be sure to follow us at Mandy and Deb. That's with a little ampersand, that fun squiggly thing, because we want to hear from you. We want to hear good stories that you want to have shared, hometown heroes, acts of kindness, as well as the topics. Or if you've got another great recommendation like this, let us know.
For sure. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button right below. And don't miss any of the shows on IITV. The brand new Twisted View with my friend Leland Conway is up and running. Check that one out too. And we will see you guys in a couple weeks.
Take care.